The Unwilling Umpire Chapter 1 Chapter 1 Crack! The baseball popped into the warm June air and reared slowly through the sky. The crowd leaped to its feet, yelling, "Run! Run!" Mr. Dillon, the school principal, dropped the bat and raced toward the first base. Dink, Josh, and Rose were sitting in the front row of bleacher seats. Dink's full name was Donald David Duncan, but his friends called him Dink. "Having a baseball game to raise money was a great idea," Roosevelt said. "Yeah," said Josh. "We have been raising funds. The kids in Green Lawn have sold enough tickets to fill the bleachers at the town baseball field. The money would go to Camp Challenge, a summer camp for kids with special needs." Out in the center field, Josh's mom watched the baseball as it started to fall. She raised her glove and the ball dropped neatly into it. Mr. Dillon was out. He trotted back toward home plate. "I didn't know my mom could catch like that," Josh said. Dink grinned at Josh. "Too bad she couldn't teach you how," he said, giving Josh an elbow in the side. "Great catch, Mom!" Josh yelled. "Gentlemen, you're out!" yelled Pete Unkenholt, the umpire at home plate, motioning with his thumb. "Ladies, you're up!" Pete was a tall, friendly guy with spiky blond hair. He was a good worker, too. He had helped to set up the bleachers for the game. Josh's mom's catch was the third out for the men's team. The women ran out of the field, high-fiving each other. The men began to take their positions on the field, joking with the female players. Josh turned to Ruth Rose. "Want to make a bet the men beat the woman?" he asked. Ruth Rose nodded, making her black curly hair out. She liked to dress in all one color. Today she wore red from her headband down to her high-top sneakers. "Sure, I'll bet you an ice cream cone that the woman wins," Ruth said to Josh. Josh laughed a grin. "You're on," he said, shaking Ruth Rose's hand. The three kids watched the men take their positions. Their friend, Mr. Satterthwaite's Pocket, was their head coach. He walked around the field chatting with the players. "How did Mr. Pocket learn so much about baseball?" Dink asked. "He told me he played a lot in college," Josh said. "It was great of him to bring some of the baseballs from his collection to the game today," Ruth said. "Yeah, I guess they're worth a lot of money," Dink added. "He let me hold this one signed by Babe Ruth." "Cool, I'm named after a famous baseball player," Ruth said. "Ha!" Josh said. "I think they named a candy bar after him, too." 6 of Mr. Pocket's autographed baseballs were on display in the clubhouse. Everyone who bought a ticket to the game had a chance to admire them in the locked case. The men were all in their field positions. Allie was up first on the women's team. She grabbed the bat and headed for the batter's box. Pete smiled at Ellie and gave her a thumbs up. "Pete seems to be a nice guy," Dink said. "I'm glad he volunteered to ump." "Where did he come from?" Josh asked. "He just showed up a couple of weeks, right?" Dink shrugged. "I don't know, but everyone seems to like him a lot." "He sure is, babe," Ruth observed. "Look how he tours over Ellie." Pete threw the ball to the men's pitcher, Mr. Linklater. The scoreboard read, "Men 1, woman 0. "Play ball!" Pete yelled. Ellie stepped up to the batter's box. Everyone cheered as she got ready for the first pitch from Mr. Linklater. Behind Ellie, Jake, a local firefighter, was catching. He crouched with his mitts in front of his chin. The pitch was low, but Ellie swung away. She missed, and the ball zinged into Jake's waiting glove. "Strike 1!" Pete announced as Jake tossed the ball to the pitcher. Mr. Linklater wound up and threw his next pitch. This one was high, but Ellie swung and caught part of the ball. It skipped down the first baseline. Lucky old Laurie fielded the ball in full territory and whipped it back to Mr. Linklater. Strike two! The spectators jumped to their feet for the third pitch. Everyone was yelling, whistling or clapping. Pete raised his arms for quiet. Mr. Linklater's first pitch was right in the strike zone. Ellie swung with all her might. Crack! The ball soared over Mr. Linklater's head, dropped and rolled between Officer Fallon's leg in center field. Ellie took up. By the time Officer Fallon ran down the ball and snapped it to luckily old Larry at first, Ellie was rounding second base. Lucky threw Doc Henry at third, but Lucky's throw was wide. When Doc longed for the ball, Ellie made third base and kept running. With her legs pumping and arms swinging, she thundered across home plate. "Safe!" shouted Pete, throwing arms wide. Everyone leaped into the air and yelled. Ellie had scored the first run for the woman. The scoreboard now read, Men 1, Woman 1. Chapter 2. It's the tie, Redbird said. I can smell the ice cream cone, Josh. Boy, the men are lousy fielders, Josh grumbled. My grandmother can catch better. Just then, Pink and Tenhose started sneezing. He wiped his eyes, sneezed again, then turned to say something to the catcher. After a few seconds, Pete headed toward the clubhouse. As Pete passed Pink, Josh, and Redbird, he stopped for a second. Darn allergies, the young man said. His eyes were red, and he was taking deep breaths. Pete trudged toward the clubhouse. The kids watched Mr. Pocket toward the home plate. What's going on? They heard him ask the catcher. He went to get his allergy medicine, Jake told Mr. Pocket. Mr. Pocket made an announcement over the public address system. The crowd laughed and waited for the game to continue. But when Pete hadn't returned after 5 minutes, people began wondering what was going on. I'm going to use the boys' room, Josh said. Be right back. Josh jogged to the clubhouse while the crowd waited for Pete to return. Suddenly, Josh came racing back to the bleachers. He slid in next to Dink out of breath. What's up? Redbird asked. You're not going to believe this, Josh whispered to his friends. Mr. Pocket's autographed baseballs. They're gone. Redbird looked toward the clubhouse. Maybe Mr. Pocket moved them someplace else when the game started, she said. Josh was shaking his head. No, the glass case is smashed in a million pieces, he said. Someone stole those balls. Dink, Josh, and Redbird. Dink and Redbird stared at Josh, open mouthed. Should we tell Mr. Pocket? Redbird asked after a few seconds. We'll have to. He'll go bonkers, Josh predicted. The 3 kids walked toward Mr. Pocket. Dink swallowed, then tugged on the man's arm. Hi there, Mr. Pocket said. Where's that out? These people want some baseball action. Did you do anything with those 6 baseballs? Dink asked. Why, of course, Mr. Pocket said. You saw you locked them in the case. We didn't move them anywhere else, Redbird asked. Mr. Pocket smiled vanished. What's going on, kids? Has something happened to my baseballs? They're gone, Josh said. The case is smashed. There's a glass all over the floor. Mr. Pocket turned and marched toward the clubhouse. The 3 kids watched him go. You didn't happen to see Pete when you went inside, did you? Redbird asked Josh. Nope, the first thing I saw when I got inside was all the glass, Josh said. I was the only one in the place. Gosh, Dink said. Do you think Pete stole Mr. Pocket's baseball? And that is the end of Chapter 1 and Chapter 2. See you next time with Chapter 3.